Hey friends. So, first and foremost, a shout out to a friend who gave me the idea for this week's episode during a recent visit. While having a discussion, she said, secrets make you sick, and I thought that was not just cleverly put, but also very, very true. So, thanks again for that. I won't call the person out here, but they know who they are. Anyway, so, everyone keeps secrets, big or small, sometimes both. We keep them from our friends, our families, our coworkers, even our spouses. We all do it, and we all, in some form or another, suffer for it, too. I recently recorded the first couple of episodes for the Priority Messages podcast that is launching very soon, and in episode 2, which is titled, Wanting Something to Be True Doesn't Mean That It Actually Is, we talk at length about deception, both of yourself and of others. While that is not the subject of this video, I did share a story in that episode that is very much relevant to the subject of secrets. It's a story about my own family and how one lie that I would call medium to large, one deception, became a secret that snowballed over time into a full-fledged falling out between the parties involved. If you want to hear the whole scoop, you'll have to listen to that episode, but I'll give you the basics. When I was 13, my paternal grandfather passed away. My two young cousins, who were 10 and 8, I believe at the time, were not told that he had died for well over a year. My aunt and uncle, well, mostly my aunt, actually, was very, very committed to making them believe this, to this lie, going to great lengths to keep up that appearance that he was still alive. To this day, I don't know how she pulled it off as long as she did, because they lived literally next door to my grandparents then, as in they shared a wall. But anyway, eventually her cover was blown by another family member, and my two cousins found out the truth rather abruptly. They were upset, to put it gently, and the younger of the two boys took it especially hard because he was the one that was closest to Grandpa. His relationship with my aunt was forever changed after that. He seemed always angry at her, which he later flat out told me he was, because he felt robbed of a chance to say goodbye to Grandpa, and he felt like my aunt just couldn't be trusted. He got married right out of high school, and when he and his wife had a child, a big bean burrito blowout happened between him and my aunt. As a result, well, my aunt and uncle haven't seen or spoken to my cousin and his wife for almost 10 years. The last time they saw the baby, who is their only grandchild, was when he was under a year old. By the way, the baby is named after our grandfather. I have no doubt in my mind, and neither does anyone else in the family that knows the whole story, that while the reason that they had this huge falling out was not directly that lie my aunt told the boys all those years ago, but it is definitely the seed that ended up growing a sick tree, with its metaphoric fruit being poisonous, causing a lot of pain and suffering to all parties involved. When we talk about secrets, they aren't always as dramatic and big as my aunt's was, but even when they are far less consequential, they can still make you sick. And I do mean literally, by the way. Science would agree that keeping secrets can most definitely create larger levels of stress and anxiety in your life. Not to mention physical side effects too, like rapid disease progression, digestive system issues, and much more. So does this mean that all secrets are bad? No. There are certainly some exceptions. There is such a thing as a good secret, too, when what you're keeping under wraps is something positive. Those types of things are usually temporary, though. Once the thing that you're hiding is revealed, it's not a secret anymore. But unfortunately, these scenarios are the minority, and the secrets that we have are generally not positive or a good thing. There's an element of deception to them. I mean, a lie by omission is still technically a lie. Plus, at their core, secrets require you to hold on to something, whether it be the truth or something else. Sometimes you do it for a long time, even. Generally, when you hang on to some things that you know you should really let out, like a truth, for example, it eats away at you. It may make you feel awkward or uncomfortable. Hell, sometimes it even makes you avoid people. I mean, shortly after my grandfather's funeral, I didn't want to hang out with my 2 cousins who didn't know he died very often, whereas I had done it all the time before. I don't think I realized it right away. It was subconscious, and, I was 13, so I wasn't exactly the most perceptive person on earth. When my dad would tell me to get ready to go over there, I would tell him I didn't want to go because I didn't feel good, or I didn't feel like going, or I had homework. Whatever excuse came to mind first was the one I gave him. My dad was a pretty passive guy, but that excuse only worked a few times before he asked me what the real reason was. And I'll never forget standing there and just saying what came to mind, which was the unfiltered truth. I just blurted out that I felt weird around them now, knowing something so important that they didn't. And I was afraid that I would slip up and say something. I was afraid to get in trouble, especially with my aunt, who, to be honest, is kind of a crazy lady. So, all that to say, yeah, your conscience has a pretty loud voice sometimes, and even though I wasn't the perpetrator of this secret, just one of its keepers, it was a tough one to hang on to. Thinking back on this, it's kind of unfair to ask someone else to lie for you, especially a child. And while my cousins we all ranged in age at that time, more than half of us were either teenagers or young adults, like 19, 20. Still kind of impressionable at that age. It created some other issues within the family down the road too, besides just the one I mentioned earlier, but I won't even get into that, or this is going to be a very long video. So, yeah, keeping secrets can be tough on you emotionally. Not only can it create an awkward feeling around those people that may be involved, but it can create a slew of negative emotions within you too, like anxiety, shame, regret, guilt, stress, etc. This is true whether the secret is about you, such as hiding who you are, or events in your past, or bad habits, or socially unacceptable things you may do, and so on, and also secrets that have nothing to do with you, but that you are simply keeping for someone else. Sounds fun, right? Well, not so much. Especially when those secrets don't directly involve you other than the concealment part. If you've watched this channel for a while, you may recall that I have said often that so much of the stuff we carry around sometimes isn't even ours. This is a perfect example of that. And look, we have enough of our own stuff that we have to carry around, like our mistakes, our flaws, our own secrets, our indiscretions, our regrets, etc. For some people, it could be a substantial load. Adding on other people's stuff too is just too much. It can and will make you mentally exhausted. There's probably nothing that I have said in this video so far that is surprising or new. It isn't a secret, pun intended, that secrets are not great for your mental health. But why do we keep them anyway? Why do we make the choice to conceal things or help other people conceal things when we know that it's going to put a burden on us at some point, especially if we hang on to it for a long time? Sometimes it's because you don't actually have a choice or you're too young to know better. That was the case for this family secret that we had. Sometimes it's because we're ashamed of our actions or things that have happened to us, even when they weren't our fault. Sometimes it's because we're scared of being judged. And sometimes it's because we want to avoid hurting other people by telling them the truth. Whatever the reason, when a secret is minor, like say you really, really do not like your sister-in-law's cookies she keeps bringing over, but you pretend to do so you don't hurt her feelings, then that's not really a big deal. You aren't going to be up all night agonizing over those cookies that you threw away as soon as she left. Or at least, I hope not. But when the secret is something bigger, like say you saw one of your friend's husbands on a very obvious date with another woman when he's supposed to be out of town, well, now we're talking about something very different. What do you do in that situation? Is there even a correct choice there? I mean, you could not tell her and keep it a secret, but you know that if you truly care about this person, it's going to eat away at you. It's going to make you sick with things like stress, etc. Or you could tell her, which may be akin to dropping an atomic bomb right in the middle of her life. And who really wants to do that? You also run the risk of making that friend angry at you for telling her, which sounds strange to say, but trust me, it happens. So, yeah, there is not really a winning move at all here. But in my opinion, there's a reason why teachers used to tell us when we were kids that secrets don't make friends. And keeping major facts like this can ruin a friendship when the truth comes to light. So, you should really tell them. You would probably want someone to tell you if it were you in that situation. Anyway, something interesting about the business of keeping secrets, that is that the part of it that makes you the most stressed is often not the secret itself, even when it's something pretty awful. It's the distress that comes from repeatedly thinking about the information that you're trying to hide. Columbia University did a study about this a couple years ago that surveyed a vast range of people, and the results were really interesting. They determined that the stress and anxiety you feel during the moments when you are actively trying to conceal a secret are pretty short-lived, and those moments pass quickly. But when you are not actively trying to hide that secret and you're just thinking about it in your head where other people cannot see, you feel almost double the amount of stress that you do when you're actively hiding it from another person. You would think being put on the spot would be more stressful, right? But it seems our brains are far better prepared and ready to defend us against this than it is against our own intrusive thoughts. Which, by the way, that same study also determined that we tend to think about our secrets a great deal, probably more than we even realize. And how frequently we do it is a huge factor in the level of shame, isolation, dishonesty, inauthenticity, and other negative feelings that we feel. It's almost like the terrible gift that keeps on giving. So, all this is basically to say that the real harm of a secret, the real thing that makes you sick, is not that you have to hide it, but that you have to live with it and think about it. Which inevitably leads us back to the question of why we do it, and adds another one to the mix. Since thinking about a secret is usually unpleasant, why do we keep doing it, even when we make a real effort to suppress those thoughts? There isn't really one size fits all answer, but part of it is that that's just the way our brains tend to work. If I were to say right now, do not, under any circumstances, think about a chonky cat, what is the first thing that's going to pop into your brain? Yep, definitely the cat. Maybe my cat, who is shown here, who makes an appearance from time to time in these videos. Here's another look at the picture to help you not think about it. Sometimes our brains are like a pool floaty, aren't they? A well-inflated one will keep popping right back up no matter how many times you push it under the water. So, if you want the floaty to stop doing that, what's the answer? Is it simply to let the air out of it slowly until it gives you the desired result? Well, kind of, yes. You obviously cannot do that with the thoughts in your brain, though. At least, not really. I mean, I guess you could just release the secret, let it out and let it go, and that will be more than half the battle. But saying that is definitely much easier than doing it. So, it's not a magic wand answer by any means. Plus, what if that isn't even possible? What if you absolutely cannot let that secret out because there will be devastating consequences for everyone involved, including you? You already know that flat-out suppression doesn't work. You are only going to think about it more. But what if you did allow yourself to think about it sometimes? People tend to do this with big secrets, and honestly, it is not always a bad thing to deconstruct the things in your life, including secrets, even things that are unpleasant, that you don't discuss with anyone. It helps you figure out what really happened here. And more importantly, why? What is the truth behind the secret that I have been keeping? What is it really? You'd be surprised how helpful this train of thought can really be. Even if you ride it all the way to the end, where you realize that there really isn't much you can do about the situation, the secret that you're carrying may need to just stay secret. But if you can use what you learned to figure out what in particular about these secrets triggers those invasive thoughts, you can use that to your advantage. Think about it this way. When you would rather not think about a particular memory from your past, over time, you learn to recognize the things that trigger that memory to come to the surface. Then, when those triggers pop up, you figure out how to eliminate them. You generally learn how to just focus your attention elsewhere, minimizing the likelihood that that memory keeps coming back to mind. Doing this often can really help to dull the edge on the pain from that memory sometimes. It becomes something you learn to live with, which is, unfortunately, all we can do sometimes. So, if we can do this kind of thought suppression with our memories, then why can't we do it as easily with our secrets? Could it be because maybe we actually want to think about them? Well, why the hell would we want to do that? Look at it this way. If you're keeping a secret very close to the vest and not telling anyone, the only place to work through it is in your own mind. And the more significant the secret, the more there is to ponder and process. So the problem is not that you're trying to suppress the thoughts like you're trying not to think about a chonky cat. The problem is actually isolation. Very often, simply thinking about a secret evokes a feeling of social isolation in us, which puts the secret keeper in a bit of a pickle. If the secret is so important that it should not be ignored, thinking about the secret is unfortunately necessary, but it's also painful. But it doesn't have to be as painful as it often is, friends. Here is where talking about things with others helps tremendously. That's a really important point, which is why I saved it for last. Just like with shame, secrets get their power from being unspeakable, from being in the shadows. When you bring them into the light, even if it's in a small way, even if you don't reveal everything about it, it is taking away some of its power. And that's where you can stop letting it make you sick, by finding someone you can trust to begin to let some of that secret go. Even if you think it's too much or too terrible that you cannot talk about it at all. Even just a small step, saying some words out loud, can actually be a huge step. Never underestimate the power of the light, friends. It is the enemy of darkness for a reason. It is what brings you to a clearer path. It can help you heal from being sick. It helps you get well. And that's something we should all want for ourselves. That's all I've got for you this week. I'll be back next week with another priority message. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.